Man Cave Sports back. Just watched the fight with the guys, detailed it, etc. So now we talk about the aftermath and a few questions from our panel, our good buddies, Mr. Jake Wagner, founder of the Minnesota Boxing Hall of Fame. And also you might have seen him back in the day when Minnesota was in its glory days and we covered boxing on Fox Sports North. So,
yes.
Former Boxing Digest writer as well. And Jake, if I'm not mistaken, do you have a vote for the National Boxing or the Pro Boxing Hall of Fame too, correct?
Yeah, I have. I actually was the youngest voter ever, which was sort of cool when it happened, but that was in 2002.
Okay.
I guarantee I'm not the youngest anymore at 48, but it's fun. So they'll mail out the ballots from Canastota, and you vote on it. And I recently got asked to do some of the pioneer voting, which I've been wanting to do for a long time because nobody ever remembers those guys. So
okay,
yeah,
right
awesome.
Right on. And then we also got my man who learned everything he knows from me, Mr. Corey Rapiz. Hey, if you were at the Hall of Fame, he said it. So anyways, there's record. But anyways, my man Corey Rapiz, boxing promoter extraordinaire, Rapiz Boxing, has a show coming up in Hinckley on February 14th, which we will preview here next week on Man Cave Sports. So gentlemen, welcome. Jake, I'm going to start with you. I know you guys have questions. Hopefully Ramon and I didn't ask all of them, but Jake, fire away.
Thanks. Well, obviously everybody knows I'm this Minnesota boxing historian thing. So there's one thing that's hard to keep track of the last 25 years, really, or 30 years of Minnesota boxing is the gate. The gate is what a total fight drew as far as fight receipts and that sort of thing. I've tried to figure out from asking Justin. I've tried to ask Tony. I don't even know what the end number is, but did you guys ever get word as to what the gate was for the fight? Was it $290,000? Does anybody know what the actual take for the house was that night?
I do not know the dollar amount. I just know the attendance is like 9,700. I don't know the gate as far as money wise, but I know Tony G and Justin made a shit ton of money. One of them is a good guy. One of them is an asshole.
And so, what were on that same note?
Do you want me to specify which one's an asshole? That's Tony Grigalko.
How did they negotiate the purses for the fight for each of you guys? I mean, was it a percentage? Was it a flat purse plus a percent? Can you guys speak about that?
Of course.
Yeah, it's kind of I think, as far as I know, we made the same amount. We were close to it. I don't know if,
I can tell you, I'll tell you bull blunt honestly what I made. When Justin made it, he was my manager at the time, but I didn't let him negotiate my purse for this fight because he was the promoter, and of course he's there to make money. So I got $25,000, and then I got I think 10% of the gate.
Do you remember your payout from the gate then, or
no? I have no idea what my payout was.
The payout from the gate was really good because
was it?
Because there was a shit ton of people. You figure 9,500 people, you got 10% of that at, even if it's at $30 a piece.
Yeah,
it's $27,000.
So it was probably an additional.
So our pay was very similar.
Okay.
Except for, I think, did you get? I got $1
per ticket.
Per ticket sold.
Yes. You're right.
So
nice.
Yeah,
so, that's right. We did do that too.
That was kind of nice.
Yeah. But now, as much as I hated the Predator, I love the guy.
Oh yeah, we made some good money together. But we're also buddies now. You know what I mean? It took a while, but we're in. Right. Your buds, man. We're a lot more alike than we're different.
Corey.
When the commission came back, this was part of a 2-fight deal. The November before, Vanda, you fought Carew. Bonsante fought Lowry. And so when you guys made a 2-fight deal, it was promoted in the media as a seconds out event. I've since found out that Justin Sawyer was actually the one that put all this together. Can you guys speak on how the fight actually came together, who you negotiated with, how you guys made that deal?
I negotiated with Justin Sawyer. I don't think it was a seconds out. Who's seconds out? Is that?
That's Tony Grigalko.
Yeah, it wasn't a seconds out fight at all. It was Justin Sawyer and RDS. I think. I'm pretty sure. I don't think seconds out had anything to do with it. Go ahead.
And I know Justin was my manager at the time, but when you're fighting, my manager's not going to negotiate my contract on a fight he's promoting. So I had to do it myself. And, of course he wanted me for the lowest cost, but that wasn't going to happen. So I learned a lot from Justin, because Justin's a very smart person as a lawyer.
Oh, yeah.
But I learned a lot from him. You don't take the first offer, ever. And he taught me to negotiate, and I did. And seconds out, I think, was on the poster, but I don't think Tony Gergelko did anything. I think Justin did all the work. So did RDS. In fact, when you said that, Matt.
I think if they were on the poster, maybe they had a couple guys fighting on
Yeah, maybe. But Tony was...
Yeah, that doesn't seem right.
No, it doesn't. I mean, he never was a good promoter, never is, never will be, and he's a snake in the grass little bitch.
Oh, Jake.
Well, you guys got, you always hear stories about who rubbed each other the wrong way, and I knew it would come out with these sorts of things. For the record, I like both Tony and Justin. I always got along great with both.
I don't.
Both of them always treated me really, really well. But one question I think I heard it talked about when you guys were watching the fight, and I think I know how each guy would answer, but I want to ask it anyways and let you guys answer. What did you find in each other when you fought to be your opponent's most effective punch against you? What did you think Matt was like, I don't want to get hit with that again from Tony, or that's really causing me problems? And Tony, what was Matt throwing at you, whether it's body, head, certain combos with the jab, the hook, whatever? What did you think that was most effective Matt was doing to you? So whoever wants to go first.
I'll go first, because after just even during that fight, that uppercut he was throwing, his jab, he was working his way in with that jab. He was strong, but that uppercut was so vicious. I mean, it almost took my head off a couple of times. I mean, that uppercut was just, I didn't want to get hit with that thing anymore. I didn't even, like I said, I haven't watched the fight till today. I didn't even realize he knocked me down with the right hand. I thought it was an uppercut because I was getting hit with that thing so much, and every time he was hitting me with it, I was hurt. So it was like, that's the one I didn't want to get hit by. Definitely didn't want to get hit with that one as much.
Well, and Billy Kane was my trainer, and he always said, now, Matt is fast. He's got fast hands. He gets inside, he'll throw 5, 6, 7, 8 punches, and he'll get out. But and I didn't want that to happen. So when he would come in, I'd grab him, I'd hold him, I'd try to wrestle with him, make sure he didn't get those 7, 8 punches off. So that was my tactic, because he was probably a little faster than I was, because he was younger, quick hands,
And Tony was way stronger.
I didn't want to get that. So
he was so much stronger, it was unbelievable. I couldn't believe how overmatched I was in strength. Like, it was just crazy. I couldn't believe it, how strong you were. It was just it was crazy.
Corey.
So with the 2-fight deal, you guys fought I wouldn't call them tune-ups, but the fights before on November 17th, and then you did your fight only 7 weeks later. Why so quick? Was that enough time? Because right after your fight, November 17th, you go into Thanksgiving, and then you're right back in January against each other, go through the holidays. Was that enough time for this fight, or why was it so quick?
Yeah, I actually like it. I wanted him to come up quick like that, because I wanted to just keep going with the flow. And that might have maybe not worked out to my advantage either, because I think I might have overdid it, because I went right back into training. I didn't care about the holidays. I wanted to fight Tony. So the holidays didn't matter. I just wanted that fight to come up quick. I know that was my plan.
And when you come off of a fight, it's so much easier to start training for another fight, because otherwise, if you have 5, 6 months in between, you gain all the weight, you get out of shape, and then you got to get back into it. This actually worked out perfect, because I didn't really lose a step. I got back in shape. I took a week off, just did what I wanted to do, and then we started training again, and Billy had me on a regimen to start fighting and training and sparring and the whole 9 yards, and it worked out perfect, because for the fight between me and Matt, I was probably in the best shape of my life. That one and the John Duddy fight. And
you were in dynamite shape for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And, it worked out perfect for me. So, yeah, it was nice.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it didn't work out perfect for me. I don't know. I was so hyped up for that fight. I think I'm mentally overloaded. You know what I mean? I just was like,
Sure.
crazed. But yeah, I mean, I think it was great going back-to-back fights like that because everyone was ready. Everyone was ready for during the first fight they wanted, now the build-up was even a little bit more.
I mean, if I could fight 8 times a year, it'd be fantastic because you never got out of shape. You always just kept training. So, sorry, took too long.
You're good. Jake.
Yeah, I'm just so glad that the fight actually took place because Minnesota had been lacking a big marquee matchup like that for a long time. I mean, your fight with Lowry, both you guys' fight with Lowry was a nice intrastate rivalry, but this was the one everybody was wanting to see.
Yeah, for sure.
Glad it happened. Why I couldn't remember, but why didn't the second fight happen? Because I tell you, first off, before I ask that question, one of the reasons I'm glad it happened is because there's all these ones that should have happened that don't happen. And like Wilton Hilario and Jason Litzow, I would have loved to have seen that fight.
Yes.
I think I would have known who would have won. I think Jason would have been a little too much for him at that point in his career, but I would have loved to have seen it. And I'm really grateful you guys were able to come to the table and get that done. But then I forgot there was, until Corey mentioned, I forgot there was a 2-part deal. Why did the second, was it just people couldn't come to terms? Or was it
I don't even know why the second fight
I don't know why the second fight.
Actually,
Corey, do you know anything about that?
Weren't you guys supposed to fight at Black Bear?
Yes.
Years later.
Years later. But
I don't even know.
I don't know why in hell it
did
happened. I know I was old at the time, and I would have had to have an MRI, an EKG, an EKG, whatever fucking test.
Yeah, it wasn't right. It wasn't right for either one of us at that time. Just like what was done, and Tony was old. That's right, Tony. You were older at this time. It just ain't. Sometimes
I don't know why it never happened.
Sometimes you don't need to fight anymore.
Yeah.
So when did you guys actually develop a good relationship and a friendship? The thought was forever, Vanda and Bonsante, they hate each other forever. They can't go in the Hall of Fame together. There's going to be a fight in the crowd. Like, when did you guys actually, become cool with each other?
Well, at the Hall of Fame, I was pissed that he was at the Hall of Fame going into it. I was like, what the fuck kind of shit is this?
Same day.
So I was trying to stay away from him, and then Tony I was walking by him, and I was ignoring him as much as I could. Tony grabbed me and said, hey, come here, man. And I went on, and so we're face to face. He goes, hey, man, we're both great. You're a great guy. And we basically hugged and said, hey, you know what? What's done is done. Let's fucking move on. And since then, we've talked on the phone lots of times. I mean, we actually have a really good relationship. We're more alike than not, and we laugh, and so it's great. It's really great. I became friends with almost everyone I fought, except probably that goofball Chavez.
Yeah,
he's a goofball. But everyone else I've become friends with. I mean, why not?
I mean, at the Hall of Fame when we went in, and Matt will attest to this, he didn't want to go in the same day I did. I didn't want to go in the same day he did, but we did it. And after that, I call him, I call his wife Cindy. They're good people. He's got 3 great daughters. I've got 2 good kids. I'm a grandpa now, and I love it. The relationship I have with Matt right now is basically because of that fight in 2007 at Target Center.
Yeah, it was great.
It was fantastic. Yeah. It made Minnesota boxing, and it made a very good friendship between the two of us. So I appreciate it, and I appreciate Matt.
Yeah, we love talking boxing and shit. We love shooting this shit, man.
But the hatred made for a great fight, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
It did good build up. Obviously, it didn't go the way I wanted. Great build up. Didn't go the way I wanted to. And watching it today, man, it brought back a lot of emotions. And it was great though, dude.
Don't kick my ass now.
No, it was great. It was actually great to see though. Like I was saying, I don't know if you guys heard. Like after the fight, like we hate each other after the fight. I wanted to get away from Tony, and he grabbed me and he brought me in. And I remember he said, he's like, "Hey man, you're a good dude." I can't remember exactly, but he gave me a kiss on the cheek and said, "Dude, you're a good guy." Blah blah blah, and that actually was really fucking cool, Right after, but then we didn't really become friends till the Hall of Fame, and then we started talking.
He talks to my daughter all the damn time.
I wish her luck on her kids and stuff. I mean, we became friends on Facebook. Awesome. After the fight, I went and said hi to his kids. His kids are a little older than mine.
There's a mutual respect and a brotherly love in boxing that will never be reiterated in any other sport ever. And I don't care what happens, because I've been involved in a lot of sports, but boxing, it's a brotherly love after the fight. During the fight, I'm going to kill you. But after the fight, we can share a beer. We can talk about families. And it's a bond that will never be repeated ever.
No, most people don't know what two guys have to go through just to get ready for that fight. And then you're just so stressed out and pissed off. Well, I was. And then, you how can you not have respect for each other after that? But yeah, just everything that goes into it, any fight. But, especially these fights, it's a lot. It takes a toll on a guy,
Yeah.
It's a fucking battle. Either you love him or hate him.
And he hated me, by the way.
It takes a toll on you every time, It's amazing.
Matt, you helped sell some tickets. I mean, I remember the TV slots they'd give you guys. Somebody did a special. Maybe it was Fox or somebody where they interviewed Tony. You were with your wife at the time, and Matt, and they were getting some great sound bites between you guys. I mean, it sold some tickets. You could feel it you had to get your rabies shots before you could watch the episode.
Oh yeah, people wanted to see us.
They were hyped up.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
What as far as training for the fight? Do you guys remember who you used for sparring partners? And then for me, I'm trying to take off maybe 10. What's your diet like when your guys are going into what are you eating? What are you not eating? What are you refraining from? Do you guys remember when you're really trying to get down to weight? Are there certain regimens that you remember you went through for that fight or any other?
All of my fights, and it's weird because I cut out beer or alcohol, soda, and sex for 6 weeks before the fight. And I would eat chicken, tuna, brown rice, vegetables, fruits. Stay away from the sugars, stay away from the carbs, stay away from all that. And you'll drop weight, but go without those 3 things that I mentioned and see how ornery you get. See how amped up you get. See how pissed off you get that you want to tear heads off, poke eyes out, and skull fuck people. It's just the way it is.
The old fighters knew that. They've been saying that for years. Matt, what was your training regimen like your diet?
Fairly similar. I love drinking Guinness. I actually, days that I would spar, I'd have a couple Guinness, that's the dark beer. As part of my training, I'd drink a couple Guinness on the days after I sparred. But I always ate chicken and asparagus and chicken and greens mostly and I love steak and all that stuff. But everything changes when you go into training,
You got to drink beer when you were training?
I always drink Guinness.
That's bullshit.
I don't drink anymore, but I always drink Guinness after the days I sparred. To me, it was like Popeye drinking spinach.
Did you ever tell the wife that you had to go without for 6 weeks?
Oh yeah.
How pissed off was she?
Oh yeah, I think. Yeah,
she's mad.
But also,
to hire services for Christ's sake.
Sometimes it's you don't have to give up sex if. I didn't give it up as much because if you're used to doing it every day, or not every day, if you're used to doing it, I don't think you should have to give it up. Now, the day of the fight, the week of the fight's a different story.
My wife was a nympho.
Oh, no.
So I had to give it up for 6 weeks. And it was tough because it literally made me mean. Literally made me mean.
Well, she was probably beating you up in the house, too.
You had 2 fights. You went home and you had to...
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. She'd be beating you up at home. Getting you ready
Did you guys listen to Mickey and Rocky, Women Weak and Legs?
Exactly. It wasn't about weak and legs. It was all mental. I remember that like it was yesterday.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Just not for Matt, though, because he was used to getting it every day.
No, not every day. No. See, this was Otis Gage's theory, and I went with it.
Yeah, but he was a ladies' man.
He's the latest, but he also said, hey, you're absolutely right.
I know.
You're absolutely, but he goes, hey, if you're used to doing it, why cut it out?
Because it makes you mean.
Now, it may, but when you're already pissed, you're already pissed. But yeah, it might make you more pissed. And I did cut it out, but maybe not as much as
6 weeks. It makes you mean.
It's crazy, man.
Mean, nasty, and ornery. I pissed napalm.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure. And believe me, I was pissed every time I fought. One way or another, I was pissed every time I fought.
Love you, brother.
Oh, yeah.
Corey.
You guys did 10,000 people in the Target Center. I don't think a lot of people realize how hard that is to do. Minnesota boxing's never come close since and won't. I remember, after Vanda Bonsante it was, what's the next fight that's going to fill the Target Center? And people's like, oh, it's going to be Abel and Butler. And they tried, and it did 10% of what you guys did. With Matt bringing national TV here several times, and then Tony getting on the Contender and getting all that exposure, I think it was kind of lightning in a bottle that you guys caught.
It's a good word, lightning in a bottle.
That's good.
Yeah.
Perfect scenario. Were you guys close to ever doing it before, or was this just kind of everything was perfectly lined up?
I think the stars aligned perfectly at that time because it was right after the Contender. And I'd wanted Matt for years, but Tommy and Brian never came anywhere near me.
Yeah.
And it worked out because after the Contender, I had some notoriety. And Matt was building his career. He was beating everybody up. He was pissed.
It was a perfect time. It was a perfect storm.
A perfect storm. It really, really was. And at that point, we just installed the new commission with Scott Ledoux. And it was
Scott wanted the fight. Scott was ready for the fight. Scott was,
because before that, Scott and Kenny had that fight at the Met Center, and that drew a shit ton of people. So he was part of that one. But now he was a commissioner and wanted to be part of it again.
A big fight, yeah.
So it worked out real well. Yeah. And whoops, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
No, you're going good. I just wanted, because we got Jake here as our historian. Jake, from a attendance perspective, where does this fight rank? And I think you would know or have a very good idea. Sorry.
Yeah, there's people are surprised, but there's a lot of fights. But back when boxing was second only to baseball, in the 1920s and 30s. But so the biggest attendance, people said for years it was Bobbitt and Ledoux. It actually isn't. That would be the largest indoor at 113,742. I think. Or wait,
113,000?
No, that was the gate at the time.
I'm talking about attendance, by the way, Jake.
Yeah, attendance was 13,789, but the largest ever was actually in 1935 by Jack Gibbons, Mike Gibbons' son. Sure, was a world-rated light heavyweight. He fought Frank Battaglia, but that was outdoors at Lexington Park, so that had 15,000. But
where does
that's amazing for back then, though. That's amazing.
Yeah. Where does Vanda Bonsante rank?
Yeah,
Vanda Bonsante. So
that would be third.
It would be
fourth.
It'd be close. It'd be close because there was about 8 fights that had 10,000 people, but it was estimates because they would say it sold out the Minneapolis auditorium, and the maximum attendance would be 10,000. So I'd have to go back and look, but I'd say it'd be like in the top 5 because it's a good thing because I'll tell you why it's actually great. You could be in the top 10 and it'd be incredible because look where boxing's at today versus, if anybody wanted to kill boxing, they couldn't have had any better plan to do it than to do the pay-per-view. They had the Vikings and Packers and Lions pay-per-view every weekend. And then you went and had 4 organizing bodies claiming each one had a legitimate champion. You kill it really quick. And then you go from 8 weight classes to 17. 17 times 4 organizations, and that's a hell of a lot of champions to know.
Sure.
Versus 8
it's
that is always on for
insane.
free. My earliest memory of boxing was watching TV with my dad in the early 1980s, watching Ray Boom Boom Mancini, and it was free.
Those are the good old days.
Yeah, you got to watch these guys build their careers.
Yep.
So having 9,000 people at the Target Center, I don't know if that ever happens again. There's almost 2 eras in boxing, like the era that I would say ended with the 70s, and then it's kind of like this. Boxing was never really the same. The 80s had some big stuff, but not here. Here it was dead. Right. You'd have fights in hotel lobbies where they put a ring up, or there's plenty of bars that actually happened in the Northeast where Dan Schomer used to fight. You could fit like 300 people, but I don't know who would ever be able to put this kind of crowd in. I
don't think so.
That's pretty cool.
Probably the rest of my entire life.
What do you think, Cor?
There's no one, and we had always talked, and it comes up all the time. What if Caleb Truax fought Rob Brandt, but they didn't resonate. Oh, Caleb, was a pretty big draw, but the biggest crowd he ever did was with Matt Vanda, and
exactly because of Matt.
I didn't think that a Truax Brandt fight was going to outdo a Truax Vanda fight. There's nothing on the horizon that comes close, and people don't understand how hard it is to get close to 10,000 people in a venue.
It's really hard.
You do because you're promoter, but
Yeah, it takes tons of coordination, doesn't it, Corey, with like the networks backing it and the radio. I mean, that one had everything going for it. You had Common Man constantly talking about it on the radio. You had Dark Star at the time, who was a big deal. People were talking about it on the internet, they're talking about it on the radio, and they're talking about it on TV. So you had all three media spectrums going in the right direction. And, you know, looking back, things make so much more sense too. I mean, people are like, this fight should have happened 3 years earlier. I can totally get why it didn't. You know, I didn't realize years ago that Matt had a small amateur career. He's learning as he went, as he turned pro. And, I mean, holy crap, how hard could that be? You know, and Tony had an extensive and decorated amateur background. Then we went in. And, you know, so as you sit and look at some of these old fighters, I mean, Jackie Graves, #2 rated featherweight in the world when he fought Willie Pep and sold out it was a non-title fight. Pep wasn't willing to put his title on the line in 46. But a featherweight, #2 rated in the world from Austin, Minnesota. And it's just, I mean, but yet Jackie Graves had 300 amateur fights before he ever turned pro. It's close. It was 284-6 was his record.
That's wild. That's crazy.
284 wins and 6 losses. And they did look that. So there's not a whole hell of a lot of difference other than a 1 minute shorter round. And it's amazing when I got to meet him in the early 2000s. He had a little bit of Alzheimer's. Well, you'd think he'd been having a drool cut by then for that many, because then he went on and had 95 pro fights after that. And the crazy thing, and I don't have to tell you guys this, is once you're a ranked fighter, you're really never going back from that. You're always fighting that level of that tier guy. It's either tier 1 or tier 2. It's never 3, 4, or 5. And so people always look at guys' records, and I should write a book or an article on how to analyze boxing records, especially the older ones. But most people who don't really know boxing can't analyze a record. When did you fight them? How old were they? You know, in their prime, not in their prime? Where did you fight them? In somebody's hometown? In this case, that was neutral ground. I mean, it's like, where did you fight them? When did they fight them? All those types of scenarios. But they'll look at a guy's record at first glance, like Rafael Rodriguez when he got inducted in the Hall of Fame in the first year that we had it, and they'll be like, oh, you know, 20-some wins and about 20 losses. Rafael Rodriguez, this was like his living.
Yeah.
He didn't have any
Oh,
other
man.
job.
He fought some tough people.
He fought Sugar Ray Leonard. He didn't get knocked out. He actually won a couple rounds. He didn't actually fight top 10 guys after that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, so he was after the payday. He was hoping he'd win, but, you know, he was in every one of those fights and won some of them. So people are like, you don't really know. I mean, Justin Sawyer mentioned Justin Polk will be side at the Hall of Fame. Like, what's with this guy? Is this a mistake? I had to tell him, like, exactly, like, if this guy was fighting today, he'd show up any welterweight we have in the state and probably be a top 10 rated welterweight like he was back then when the competition was 5
absolutely.
So you gotta, and then of course, you put in the blood, you put in the time, you're abstaining at home, you're doing all these things throughout your career. And of course you want to make some money at the tail end. Even if you know you're being brought in, you know, I mean, Glenn Flanagan was pretty old when he finally ended his career in St. Paul, a St. Paul fighter. But I remember when he was going in and being brought in to lose. And his son Jeff told me a story about, I can't remember who the opponent was, it might have been Elsie Greenwood, but it was Elsie Morgan, but the guy just said, you know, you ain't going to win for tonight, Flanagan. As they were towing the line. And he said, as long as the check clears, he goes, I don't give a shit. You're going to know you've been in one hell of a war by the time it's done. I'm going to cut you. I'm going to do all these. I'm going to headbutt you. I got nothing to lose.
Yeah, you know
I'm
what?
not going to be able to fight for a while.
Yeah.
So, you know, of course you're going to, so you look at the losses too. And of course people are going to have losses at the tail end of the career. Plus they're getting bad advice and like, hey man, you should take this from somebody else who wants to get a cut on you and stuff like that. So, you know.
I mean, I fought Andy Coley at the end of my career. Any time during my prime, I would have probably beat him. But at the end of my career, he whooped me. And, you know, good for Andy. You know, fuck.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? It's boxing. It happens. It happens to the best of them. You know what? You win some, you lose some. Yeah, at the end of my career, I lost a bunch of fights. And you know what? And I loved it. I don't love losing, but I love, you know, I'm in tough fights. That's what you live for. You know, you don't live. Yeah. You know, it's no fun. It's no fun going out there and smashing some guy in 3 or 4 rounds. It's the battle, you know. So, I mean, to me, I didn't mind. I shouldn't say I didn't mind. Losing's part of the game, so, you know, there's no second place. But, you know, I was happy with myself being able to go the distance with almost everybody, you know, and tough son of bitches.
Yeah, I actually think you're one guy I paid attention to for a while. I mean, I really believe this. I'm not saying this to make you smile. I think you got better. Like, every year from the Bonsante. I think you got better with every match.
Yeah.
I think you got stronger. You fought tough competition. You competed. You won. You lost some. Some of these guys were absolute killers. Some of them in their backyards. I mean, I thought you got better. I'm like
That's
most
what we
fighters
said.
that do this.
Yeah, we were just talking about that.
I thought you gained like 2 steps.
And that's what we just were talking about before you guys came on. Since I fought Tony, I learned a lot from that fight. One, that I wasn't strong enough because he was so much stronger than me. I couldn't believe it. But I learned a lot from that, and it made me work harder because I don't like losing. No one likes losing. You know, I didn't want to lose to him, but it made me learn a lot more than I thought. I learned so much from that fight. It's amazing, and I got a lot stronger over my career. And I did get a little bit better. I got a lot better. We should. We all should.
So Jake, if it was a roughly, call it $300,000 gate, and I can get why there's not specific gate numbers because you had Bob Stein out selling sponsorships that came with tickets that run through the Target Center thing, and that was pretty big. If we have a $300,000 gate we're talking about, and where does that rank in Minnesota?
Well, if it was 300,000, I mean, that would be the most. Yeah, the other thing though you got to do, if people want real perspective on it, so if you want to look at the gates. I go online sometimes and you just Google like inflation calculator because Grandpa will tell me how he bought a loaf of bread for a dime, and so it's like you got to see if Jackie Graves and Willie Pep's fight, put in $40,000 in the bank, which is what it did. What is that today? It's good $300,000-$400,000.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Sure.
Yeah. So just like right now, like if we find out this $300,000 gate that you guys have, 20 years from now, maybe there is a fight that brings in more than that in Minnesota. But you're going to be the first guy to say, hey, you guys will be drinking beer at the bar 20 years from now, and you're going to say, pop it in an inflation calculator, asshole. Let's see what that means.
Yeah, because
You guys are like the 72 Dolphins.
Now it's going to be like
Undefeated, love it.
perspective. You know what I mean? Because you can't buy a truck anymore for $10,000 like you could in 1972 and 1975 when Bobby and Ledoux were fighting. So, yeah, you always got to adjust it for inflation, but just raw numbers, that would be the biggest. And by the way, the number I was given, and I don't remember whether it was Tony or Justin that gave it to me. I really don't. Because I was after it for years. The number I was given was 298,000.
That sounds pretty damn
So,
close.
Jake, I got a question for you. Do you have a video, any type of video of Bobbick and Ledoux?
Well, just the one that the Historical Society got a clip of, because KSTP for years, I was asking them for their fight films. And for years, they told me they didn't have anything.
All right.
Next thing I know, Hubbard Broadcast donates a giant trove to the Historical Society, who has done absolutely nothing with them. And so they'll publish little tiny clips of things that they did play, like little news clips. So that would be what you saw would have been on like the 9 o'clock news when they kind of showed the sports highlights.
All right.
And it's a heck of a highlight, right? I
Oh
mean,
my God. I mean, because Bobbick was Ledoux's nemesis, amateur-wise, and even in the pros, Bobbick whooped Ledoux's ass.
He did. That rivalry ran really, really deep because Rodney Bobbick was actually a ranked fighter too, Dwayne's younger brother. Rodney, tragically died in a car accident, but at a young age when he was still fighting. But Rodney had a rivalry with Scott. And I believe Rodney beat him in the amateurs, and Scott, I'd have to check, but then they fought at the Met Center, back where the Stars used to play, now where the Mall America sits, where IKEA store is. That's where the Met Center was. And it drew a lot, but Scott beat the piss out of Rodney, who was severely hungover for the fight and shouldn't have even been fighting, but the commission allowed it because so many tickets had been sold.
Sure.
Rodney, a week earlier, you can find it in old newspapers, newspapers.com, and do a research and whatnot. Rodney was in a line at a Dairy Queen, and he saw a guy try to cut in front of a kid, and he said, "Hey, get to the back of the line." And the guy said, "No, I ain't doing that." So a little verbal scuffle happened. The guy left. He came back with a tire iron, and hit Rodney without him seeing in the back of the head. Required like a dozen stitches. Rodney beat the shit out of him with the skin flap hanging out his head, just like you guys would do.
Farm boy.
And so he gets stitched up, and he goes through with the fight. so he wasn't at his best.
He
But, I
was,
mean,
he was already had his bell run going a week prior. He was probably had a concussion.
He already had his bell rung.
He had a
There was
concussion.
footage of that. Scott always told me he had footage of that. I have not seen it. And then I always truly believed that Bobbitt and Ledoux 1 and Bobbitt and Ledoux 2 were on film. For the main reason is you go back and you read the microfilms newspapers. This fight was so big, it was nationally televised. This is back when there was 5 channels, 2, 4, 5, 9, and 11. It was nationally televised by NBC, and Ben Sternberg, the promoter from Rochester, had rights to be the exclusive promoter at the Met Center in the Twin Cities. He did this deal with NBC, and they paid big money, so Ben made a lot of money. It was broadcast coast to coast. And Papa Joe Daskowitz, who was Ledoux's trainer, he filmed everything. So at the Hall of Fame, when I haven't been involved with it since 2014, but I am proud for starting it and getting it started with a group of people. So I wish I would have seen you guys there that year, but I wasn't. But he filmed stuff in the 1950s, him and George Glover. And I was able to show it, I think, in 2011 when we inducted Papa Joe. We showed footage that was black and white at his bar with one of his fighters, Joe Schmolzy, and they're showing footage of these guys from the 1950s. And they had it. So you're going to tell me on the biggest fight of Scott's life, Joe decided to put the camera away? I've always believed that film existed. I always riddled Scott. About it.
Hey,
Joe loves seeing himself on TV. Joe loves seeing himself on TV.
So I believe the film is up there in somebody's attic, and they don't know it's there. And I also believe, apparently KSTP, at least the second fight, is in the vault at the Historical Society. They have this short little clip that you can see for free. But I had offered numerous times. They always say, no, we don't have time. We're understaffed here. They're trying to actually sell the stuff. And what I'm telling them is, how do you expect to sell anything when that's somebody's dad, uncle, or grandfather? But you don't know who the hell's on the film. You just, all it really says on their website is 2 guys fighting boxing, 1976. The Bobbitt Ledoux was a little bit more specific, and that would have only been if somebody would have put masking tape on the reel and would have wrote the names of it. But I'm positive there's those fights sitting out there. It's got to be someplace. But yeah, I do. But the only thing I've ever seen is what you guys just saw. That's the only thing I've ever seen. And that's from the ending of part 2, I think the 8th round, where Dwayne got him against the ropes.
Oh, my God.
How he did. Him.
One of my favorite punch there is how he got him. And he started the body, came up to the top, rocked him with that right, but then it was like a 1-second delay just so he could hit him with the left hook. And about took his head off. I mean, chiropractors around the state went nuts, sending their business cards to Scott after that, right? So it was like, to me, it's such an enjoyable piece of our history. I think it should be out there. I don't think people should have to pay for it. And I think the whole film.
Well, we'll be now.
We'll be working on it.
Release the video.
I know these guys got to get going. I know Matt's got a party to go to. I know Ramon's going to the Timberwolves game, so I'm going to give you guys
each an opportunity. This is great seeing you guys too, man.
I'm going to give you guys I'm going to give you guys each an opportunity to ask one last question, Corey.
No, I appreciate you guys doing this.
Hey, good to see you, man. It's
nice
been a long time for sure.
Yeah, hopefully we can get you 2 out of one of the Hinckley fights.
It would be nice.
Yeah,
it would be
awesome.
awesome.
Get up there. Wagner, you know what? I tell you, Wagner, it's a shame that you're not that you don't deal with this Hall of Fame deal, because it's a shame. I'll tell you that much, and it's great to see you.
Well, thanks. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I
really loved it, and it just was really time consuming. I've switched companies a few times over the years, but I've been leading sales teams since 2012, and you're always on a plane, you know.
No, and good for you, but yeah, it's you started. It's just so that's pretty cool, you know. It's
well,
good.
Thank you. Dude. The most rewarding thing for me was the families. To see the families get together. I mean, some of these people don't know. Like, you go on the website and you look at some of these pioneers that fought in the 1880s.
Dude, it's amazing. That's where it started. That's where it started. Yeah. So you
got a ton of studs over here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. A lot of tough.
A ton of studs that were Minneapolis, St. Paul was known as the fight mecca of the world.
Absolutely,
I mean, all the way until, like, I would say the 1930s and 40s. We were right up there with Philadelphia and New York, and everybody knew it. People today don't know that, but everybody knew that. You had guys like from Pat Killen in the 1890s. Go look at his record on BoxRec. He's got like 50 knockouts. Pat Killen, but he moved from Pennsylvania to be over here so he could call himself a St. Paul fighter.
Wow.
He didn't want to be associated. His whole life, he never associated himself with that. Charlie Retzloff, he's in the Minnesota Boxing Hall of Fame. Managed out of Duluth. He called Duluth, Minnesota his home. He died here in Detroit Lake selling farm equipment machinery up there. His body was later brought back to North Dakota, but he never called himself that. Billy Patrol, who's on my wall over here. Nat Fleischer, ring editor, seen them all, right? He said the best left hook he's ever seen in his life was from Billy Patrol. And so that's a pretty telling statement.
That's pretty awesome, dude.
6 killer fights with King Tut from Minneapolis. Now, he's called the Fargo Express, and he never lived there. Never lived there. Moved to Minnesota from Pennsylvania at age 4. He always lived in Minnesota since. He married a Minnesota girl. He retired in
He loved it. He loves it up here. He loved it.
He was a Minnesota guy.
Yeah.
It was the newspaper gave him a nickname of the Fargo Express, and it stuck. But we were a big state for boxing. And what was fun for me was seeing the families, because when we inducted Minnesota Canby native Lee Savold, a heavyweight in the 1950s, his son brought his robe, and it was so cool.
Oh, sweet.
It was really, really neat. And when we got a hold of Oscar Gardner, who you remind me of, Matt, because he died, I think, in 1922. He's a featherweight killer. You remind me of him because you said, I always drank Guinness beer. Oscar Gardner rarely trained, and he killed everybody. And he would smoke oily cigars. He liked them nice and oily.
We're going to
smoke some dog rockets.
Sometimes you got to do it against the grain, you know?
Fighting those relatives was hard because you'd be reading obituaries of obituaries of obituaries. And it got really hard if they only had daughters because their last names changed.
Yeah, no shit, man. I got all daughters too. Yeah.
Weird.
Hey guys, I gotta get going.
We gotta get flying.
I really do.
Hey, guys, I appreciate this.
Guys.
I appreciate you guys joining with that. This is the end of Vanda Bonsante Minnesota Legendary Nights.
Good to see you, man.
I appreciate Corey, Jake, my man Ramon.
We'll see you at the fight soon.
Obviously, Tony and Matt, Stephen Welter in the background working the production. For those that watch this, follow Man Cave Sports. We are going to do more of these. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, gentlemen, for a legendary night. And we will see you again, everybody.
Gordon.
Bam!